So, welcome to the Natural Resilience Podcast. Today is episode 4, and we are speaking to none other than Paul Hughes. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming in. It's almost like a full circle moment for me because we first met in and around 2018, 2019 in CM Sports Therapy. And I remember the first time you came in, you'd like fan skater shoes on, cap back to front, like looked like a student and well-spoken, reserved guy. And we spoke about anything but fighting. We spoke about meditation, philosophy, psychology, spirituality. And then you just happened to throw in the conversation, oh, by the way, I'm fighting at the weekend in London, MMA. And so at the weekend I thought, well, out of curiosity, I'll go onto the laptop. And there you were. But it wasn't the quiet guy that came in that was chatting. It was, you were ferocious and vicious and every inch a warrior. And I remember just, it really intrigued me that not Jekyll and Hyde, but the ability to be reserved and grounded and balanced and, you know, deep thinking and a good communicator. And then another version that was just, you know, every inch the fighter. But that day you gave me a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And little did I know that a year and a half later the world was going to go into lockdown. And it was my first introduction to Stoicism. And Stoicism played a massive, massive part in my life during lockdown. So thank you. And as a thank you, I went to see Ryan Holiday in Dublin. And this is his latest book that I want to present you.
Thank you very much.
So
I appreciate that a lot. That is a full circle kind of thing there. It's hilarious.
It is. I'm very glad our paths crossed then, because that was that book I probably read 3 or 4 times over the year of lockdown.
Absolutely. It's one that you just keep rereading, right?
It is.
Life just keeps throwing obstacles at you.
It really is. But I suppose I wanna ask you, what was your introduction? You introduced me to Stoicism. What was your introduction and how did it have an impact on your life?
So funny enough, we were just speaking about him before the podcast started, was Roscoe, my videographer. He gave me the book whenever I was going through my hand injuries. So that would have been a couple of years before that. You know, he's been following me since, actually coincidentally, just a few days ago, it was 8 years since my professional debut. We started filming together just before that. And then I went through like my hand injuries, and he had been on the Stoicism and he had heard of Ryan Holiday, he had read the books, and he was like, I think this is really, really going to be really good for you. And he passed it on to me, and then that was kind of my introduction to it all, and then my spark kind of came from that.
Well, we spoke about your hand injury. So I think a lot of people, obviously there's been massive media exposure for you recently, huge kind of global fights. But 8 years ago, I'm assuming you were relatively unheard of. You were, you know, just focusing on your trades, like putting in the hard miles, the hard graft. But I remember saying that you had a fairly serious hand injury.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that in terms of how the injury came about, but also how you healed yourself from it as well?
Yeah, I mean, to put a long story short, in my professional debut, which was in the SSE in Belfast, it was like a short notice kind of a thing. I think I got like a week and a half or 2 weeks notice. I was still fighting amateur at the time. I knew I wanted to fight professional. Obviously, that was my whole aim. And the opportunity came up, and my coach at the time was just like, "This is Ciaran. Would you want to take it?" And I remember, just because of who my former coach was, Davey Patterson, he'd be the type of person that he wouldn't ask you if he didn't think you were ready. So him asking me, I was like, let's do it, you know. And then it went fantastically. Won like 90-second knockout, went viral. Just a wee like really, really baby-faced kid just beating the shit out of some dude. So it really blew up. But in that fight, I broke my left hand. Now, thankfully, I had no more issues with the left hand. But when I came back, so whatever it is, 2 to 3 months recovery, planning for my second fight after, you know, a lot of hype, things were going well. And then I ended up breaking my right hand. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Like 2 hand breaks in 2 different hands. I can't believe this is happening. Like, and then it just created this like really, really unfortunate streak of just re-breaks in my right hand, which, you know, it was 4 breaks in the space of 12 months, just back to back to back. But like the thing about it was, like, this was, I just went all in to this at this point. I'd worked for years to build myself to a professional level, but at that point, it was like, right, I was still in the gym every day. I was doing what I needed to do for recovery. And then we'll come back in and be like, right, book a fight. I've done the recovery. I've done everything the doctors have said. Been in the cast for X amount of time. And then we'll come back to training. And after like a few weeks, it would just like refracture. And it just kept happening. But each time it was happening, it was like, like to this day, I still don't even know how I got through it, because it was like my soul was just being torn away from me every time that it happened. But anyway, that's a lot obviously going on in that time and period.
What age were you?
It was just before my 20th birthday. I made my pro debut, so 19. And then over that 1 year period, it was 4 refractures. Yeah. And then to end it, I ended up getting surgery. I was very, very fortunate to get referred to one of the top hand surgeons in the country through my physio and still my physio, Paul McCormick, who was like a huge, huge help for me to get back to fighting again, because he was the type of guy that was just like, you know, I was obviously just doing what the doctors told me, and I was like, right, you need to take whatever, 6 weeks cast, 6 weeks this. And I was like, no worries. And then it broke the 4th time, and they were like, no worries, we'll stick the cast back on. I was like, I've just done this 3 times. Like, surely there's another option. Like, should I get plates? Or I've heard of people doing that, and it really helped. And then I met Paul McCormick, and he was like, no, we need to get this sorted. Like, you will fight again, basically. Wow. And he got me in contact with a surgeon, and I got operated on within the 2 weeks, and that was it. It took a year full recovery from the surgery, and then I made a return, and then the rest has been history. Like.
Because for me, like, what really strikes out is your age, first and foremost, 19, 20, breaking on. And I remember one of the first stories I had heard of you was there's this kid from Derry that gets the bus, was it the Frames complex or somewhere in Belfast, and trains every day after school. And so you've had some form of drive and mindset, and I'm kind of interested and intrigued in terms of how that was developed over, like, who was your influence as a child. We spoke off camera before you came on. You played GAA. You're a Lavey man in South Derry. But who influenced you in those early formative years, kind of primary school, and that to have that resilience and that drive and that ambition?
I couldn't pick anybody in particular at that age or even in secondary school, because it would have been Gaelic players, because my whole thing growing up until I found MMA at 15, 16, I was just the biggest guy I'd ever met. Like, that was my life. Like, I still the competitor that I am today, I was back then. I always had that drive. And funny, like, coincidentally, I was just talking to my dad about this last night, and he was chatting to me. He was like, you always had it. Like, he was like, you always had something different than everybody else when it came to drive. And it kind of got me thinking about it more last night, because I've thought about it, but he was telling me specific stories of this and that. And I would have been a lot smaller, like, growing up. So, like, I would play in, like, my older brother's 2 years older, would have played in his team and stuff, but I was always a good bit smaller. So I always had this, like, chip on my shoulder mentality of, like, just getting stuck in. So I always had that competitor in me, and I always wanted to be the best on the pitch. So then whenever I found MMA at 15, it was just, like, the next level for me. It was just, like, the ultimate competition. It was like, right, you know, it's all down to me here. Not only is it, like, the hardest thing in the world, which I like pushing myself, but it's like that competitiveness has always been in me. It wasn't just one day I went, you know what, this person inspires me, or, you know, this book has really changed my perspective on performance. I just always was a competitor, if you know what I mean.
I think sports is such a beneficial thing for young people to get involved in. I think it brings out the best in people. Well, my son's 11 and is playing sport, and the lessons there are you can't win all the time. You have to keep your head up. You can't give up. It's about teamwork, you know, and communication and self-leadership. But where you're from, Lavey, like, that South Derry area, if you look at GAA, it's such a stronghold throughout the island of Ireland. Like, obviously Lavey, Balaki, Mahara, the Glen, Slotney, like, clubs that are known throughout Ireland. You played, you loved it, you were competitive. When did you discover MMA? Because MMA wasn't that big going back, that, you know, 10 years ago, especially in such hardcore GAA fraternities. So what intrigued you about the sport? How did you come across the sport? And most importantly, when did you decide, okay, I'm going all in with this?
So let me think. So my friends in school, we started watching UFC, and like the biggest stars at the time would have been like Anderson Silva, like Chael Sonnen, and these sorts of people. And my friend's brother, Conor McChrystal, his brother had started at like a local MMA gym. It was like maybe 10 minutes down the road in Castle Dawson. And we'd never heard of an MMA gym like being anywhere close by. Like we didn't even know if there was any MMA gyms in the country. But there was a wee gym had started up. His brother was going down, so he was learning all these moves. And he had some mats in his garage, so he started showing us to them. And I was like, this is unbelievable. This is so good. And I just kind of was like so interested in it. And then we became like big UFC fans. We would like stay up to like 6 a.m. watching the cards. And then we were like, this is some crack. Like, do you think if we asked your brother, could he bring us down to the gym sometime to try it? This is maybe when we were 14 or something like that. And then he was like, we were just scared to ask him. We were scared to ask him to go down. But we just keep picking his brain about all the techniques and stuff he would learn. Then one day we finally bit the bullet and we were like, right, we're going to go down. They had a beginner's class on the Saturdays. And I went down, would have been 15 at the time, done the beginner's class. And probably the hardest workout, like to this day, one of the hardest. My first coach, a guy called Mickey Young, who's from Castle Dawson, he had us doing the craziest training you could ever imagine in terms of like how physically hard he would push us. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced. And I remember being sore for like 6 or 7 days after the session. But, you know, I started getting the hang of it. And that, honestly, after about 1 or 2 months, I was just like, this is it. Like, this is my thing. I absolutely love this. And it was just completely hooked from then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it the sport or was it the fact that you were pushing yourself and kind of playing with what your potential may be?
All of it.
Yeah.
The whole thing. You know, and then as I mentioned, the football pitch, like I would have been a bit smaller as well. I'd like 14 or 15. So like I was obviously maybe insecure about being smaller. And I think that's probably why in the pitch I was like trying to show that, you know, I'm tough, you know, and getting stuck into all the big boys. And, you know, then learning how to like kind of handle myself, I think gave me a big confidence boost as well. So it kind of was like everything all together. I was like, right, I absolutely love this.
I love what you mentioned there about being smaller and using that as a drive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll show you. And funny, Carl Frampton said the same thing. He was the smallest boxer in the gym. And he referred to the chip on his shoulder and how much of a positive impact it had on his life. Oh, yeah. And I think that emerges a lot in that world of high performance where people use some form of inner drive to their advantage. And I suppose at the other side of the fence, sometimes people have being called smaller, feeling that way makes them feel inferior and it holds them back. And so the decisions there is, am I going to use this to my advantage or am I going to let it consume me? And you've obviously went with the former in terms of like, I'll show you. You're 15 then. Did you then decide I'm going to step away from GA and kind of focus on this? Did you see in those early teenage years that I might have a career at this?
I wouldn't say. It was probably towards later in my amateur career when I realized, like, when I started winning belts and stuff, I think I won my first, like, major belt when I was 18 at amateur. And I remember the guy that I beat was, like, known to be the best amateur in the country. And at the time, I was fighting in bantamweight. I was supposed to fight for a belt there. My opponent pulled out and my coach was like, do you want to move up a weight class to featherweight and fight the champion? I remember this guy was like the best guy in the country and I was like, I forget, why not? And I was 18, your guy was probably mid-20s. Wow. I went out and battered him. And after that, I was like, okay, right, I've got something here. I kind of knew that I had something because I always had that athletic ability, that competitiveness and like that drive and to work hard and to be better. I think after that was the first time I was like, oh, you know, I can maybe do something in this. And then about a year later was whenever I was telling you I got the opportunity for my professional debut. And after that, then I was just like, as mentioned, like it went viral enough. I remember it done like maybe 3 million views on my Facebook page at the time, which is like big numbers back in the day on Facebook for like a 19-year-old kid. And I remember even like I'd made my Facebook page for my athlete page and it went up to like 13,000 followers after that debut. And I was like, holy shit, wow, this is crazy. I mean, you know, I was like, I could do this.
What's the population of Lavey?
Oh, I mean, maybe 5,000.
Yeah.
Right, roughly, aye.
That's
So
incredible.
that was like, I
Yeah.
was like, because it went like semi-viral around the world. I was like, okay, I could do something here. Like I could not just like, I could be a professional fighter and have fights. I could do something here. Like I could do this as a career. This was before like Conor McGregor or anybody had taken off. So it wasn't like something you seen other people doing yet. But I was in the sport. I knew I was good at it. I was like, after that, I was like, maybe I could push on with this.
So you had your debut, and then the four hand fractures in a row, and so obviously you went and you got the medical treatment and the physical treatment, but more so mentally, how does a young man process that? Not so much, a young man, but somebody that's like full of ambition, that's thinking to himself, I can make an impact here, and to be felt as if they're being pulled back. Like, how did you internalize that year of break after break after break?
It was a hard one. I'll tell you that. As I said, it genuinely felt like my soul was just being dragged away from me each time that it broke. And at that point, it was at a very important time in my life as well, because I'd just finished secondary school and all of my friends were like moving up to college in Belfast. And I had kind of decided when I was like upper sixth, I was like, this is what I want to do. I remember saying to my mom, I was like, look, I can like study really hard here and maybe get in and do sport and exercise sciences in Jordanstown, which you needed 2 A's and a B at the time. I was like, I could like really try my hardest and knuckle down to get these grades, but I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to be a fighter. Like, this is what I want to do. So I'm not going to put the time into the books. I'm just going to train. And so that was whatever, at your age, 16, 17. And she was cool with that because she seen what it was doing for me. But anyway, to the reason I'm talking about this, so then my friends were like, right, we're all moving to Belfast here. And I could have went to Belfast. I could have went and lived up with them. And I remember to this day, so there's a day when you all get your results at A level. And on the same day you get your results, everybody treks up to Belfast. And they all look for student accommodation. All your mates, you get together, you go, right, we get a house at 3, we get a house at this, we get a house at that. And they need a lift to Belfast. And I was the only one that had a car at the time. So I was like, right, frig it, I'll take you up. And brought them all to Belfast. We're looking around houses, couldn't get a 3, couldn't get a 4. They had one house that was available. It was a house for 7. There were 6 of us. Just one more spot. And they were like, do it. And I was like, I can't do it. So I decided at that point, like, that was like a big thing for me where I went all in. That's when I went all in there, because I was like, right, this is a huge sacrifice. Everybody, of course you want to, at that age, you go up, live in Belfast, you live that student life, of course you want to do it. But I had made the decision to go all in. And at that point then, what I did was I kind of had to separate myself from my friends. Naturally, of course, we are separated if they're living up here. But I separated myself and I went all in. And I kind of lost that touch and connection with them. And then the injuries happened. And then I started going, right, I'm completely like separate from everybody here. I've just went all in my dream. And like, the break would happen and then I'd do everything in my power. I'd be in the gym all day, I'd be rehabbing. And then it would happen again. And I'd be like, I can't believe this is real life right now. And I wouldn't be speaking to them about it much. They'd just be like, living student life. Yeah. When you're that age, you're not checking in with your mates going, here, how you doing? Like, emotionally, is everyone all good? You're 18 and you're going to get blocked all the time. That's what they were doing, which is fine. And it kept happening. And then it got to a point where like I was really low and I was like, right, I need to find a way through this. And then that ended up just being the catalyst to like the person that I am today, because I had to forge myself into someone that could, first of all, get through that. And second of all, someone who could then use that obstacle to my advantage, But that's where my journey of self-development, self-improvement, spirituality, that's when I started getting into meditation, all these things. That's where it began for me.
In the pain?
In the pain, yeah, 100%.
And I think that is prevalent and true for a lot of people that have forged their character or have thought deeper around their kind of reason for being or why they're here. Is they're in the dark, they're in the cave, they're going through something. Do you look back now with gratitude to that really tough period in terms of the man it's made you and your mindset?
I mean, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Wow.
It really, really was. And it only took me a few years after it to realise that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because as I said, that was the catalyst for the man I am in front of you right now. Was that deep, like, kind of like isolation and like pain and hurt of like you're soul being ripped away from you, what you really want to do in life, just constantly being ripped away. But as mentioned, like the isolation side of it, with all my friends just moving up to Belfast and not really seeing them, and just like having to just go, I had to find something.
Yeah.
And that's where like things like this, that became me. I just became absolutely, utterly obsessed with self-improvement, utterly obsessed with becoming the best version of myself. That came through, first of all, going, right, how do I get through this, first of all? I studied the greats. I read sports psychology. I started meditating. And that was, as I say, the catalyst for it all, you know?
When I got that book for you, the title in itself kind of reminded me of you. Discipline is destiny, because again, like I know, even as you mentioned, your friends going into the student accommodation in the Holy Lands, doing what students do, having the time of their life. For you as a boy, still in that kind of cusp of boyhood to manhood, to say no.
Yeah,
I'm being disciplined to my dreams, to my aspirations. The probably dozens of times throughout that year of going, it's probably easier for me to go and party here. But I've also had conversations for you. Like I know you're big into your nutrition. You know, you look after yourself. Like you're back training again now. Movement. You know, walking on beaches. The meditation stuff. That discipline plays a very important part of your life. How would you describe discipline? How would you describe the role it's had on your journey to the top?
Well, obviously it's been everything. You know, you don't get to these positions like unless you really give everything. But my philosophy has always been all in. I've actually got it tattooed here. Coincidentally, something that I've just been, and that was years ago, something I've just kept looking at the last month since everything just completely took off for me. So for me, like, my philosophy is all in. You know, so the discipline, like, this is everything to me.
What is all in? Is all in surrendering fully to what comes next?
Yeah.
Just the process of what's unfolding in front of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And just giving my entire soul and energy to it. So the discipline came naturally, if you know what I mean, because that was my deep, like, philosophy behind it all. It's like, this is everything to me, and I will do absolutely everything in my power, what it takes to get there. So, of course, that's where the discipline comes in. But, you know, it's almost like, don't want to say it wasn't hard to be disciplined. Of course it was, but it's like it consumed me. Like this is that I realized early, like as I talked about that kind of time period where it changed. I had to change myself. I also had to do a lot of deep thinking and think like, you know, is this really what I want to do? You know, because obviously it's being ripped away from me. This is all happening, and then I'm like, right, is it actually what I want to do here? And then I'd done the deep work and I realized, like, this is my purpose. Like, this is my entire soul and being is this. And that's where the drive and then, of course, the discipline then comes from, because that's what I want to do, you know?
It's powerful. I think it's easy to say all in. I think in case anyone's listening, go, oh, yeah, well, I'll go all in at something. Yeah. I mean, all in requires a lot of sacrifice too. What sort of sacrifices have you made? Obviously, we spoke about like not going in the partying days. But I often think people listen to interviews like this and think it's easy. You know, you just commit to something, but it requires a full committal of years. I mean, decades. What sort of big sacrifices have you made along the way to get to where you are?
Well, that would have been probably a good starting point anyway for me, because that was at the time a big decision, you know, sacrificing that kind of social life, I guess, at that age, whenever that is your whole life to a degree. That would have been early doors for me, a big thing. After that, it just would have been, I guess probably the biggest thing would be social life at that age. Now, I did then come to realize how important that is, and that community and friendship is, and I'm now closer than ever with all of my friends and family, have been for a long time. If I'm to think of anything in particular, it probably would be the social aspect of it. Yeah. Because just, you know, having to turn down everything. You know, and as I say, like, my philosophy has always been all in. It's been, not that it hasn't been hard to do, but I've just been so consumed by it. Yeah. That the sacrifices didn't, maybe, I don't know, they just didn't compare to how much I wanted it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
when you talk about fighting, your face lights up. Like, you can see you love what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as an outsider looking in, when I watch you on TV, you seem to have your social life now, I mean, the connection you seem to have with your corner and your teammates seems to be what a lot of guys are yearning for when they're going out drinking in public. You seem to almost be like a family.
Yeah.
You and you've a couple of real key people around you. How important does that play for an individual sport? You're getting into the cage by yourself to confront another fighter, another warrior. How important is that team in the build up to the training, the media, the pressure, and after as well?
Yeah, it's everything to me, and it's a large part of my success now. Is the connection that I have with my team, because they know me inside out. I think, why it's so good is because they're my tribe, essentially. Like, we have the same values, we have the same goals in life, we have the same kind of ambitions. It's the same field, so like, they're my tribe. We're just on the same wavelength. So in turn, they understand me. They understand firstly what it takes in this game, because they're in the same game, but they understand me because my team I've been with for a very long time, and they're also like my best mates now as well. So that's where I've been able to been very fortunate to have like that community aspect that everybody needs, that social connection. Everybody needs that, and I learned that the hard way, as the stories that I talked to you about. But I now have that all in one from my MMA career, but my team as well. We're all so close that I get all bases are covered, essentially. And that's why I love it, because I'm like just in total alignment with my purpose right now. So you're saying to me like, oh, you're back in the gym already. I'm like, couldn't imagine doing anything else, to be honest. Yes, there's obviously, a lot of fun things to do out there, and I definitely have a good time, like, but that's my thing, like, that's my purpose, and we're all in alignment together. So I think that's why we're starting to do so well together as a team. Like, we're on the global stage now. We're pushing mixed martial arts in Belfast massively. I mean, we're completely sending it to another stratosphere here, and we hope to continue doing that.
You are on the world stage. I mean, last month, was it? Dubai.
Yeah.
One of the biggest fights in MMA history. Huge fight. But going back to 2018, I remember you saying so confidently, not cocky, but very confidently, I will be world champion, like 100%.
Yeah.
Your team around you obviously now feel the same. I love that attitude, because the Irish, the diaspora, have had such a positive impact on the world. I'd say our only criticism is sometimes we're too humble. But for you to say, I am going to be world champion, I am going to make my mark on the world, I think it's amazing. I think it inspires a lot of people to think bigger. But what really impresses me about you, Paul, and we'd love to get into that, is despite being on that global stage, you remain very grounded, in terms of how you portray yourself on social media, in your interviews. Have you an influence there in the background, family, upbringing, just in terms of that being, you're still Paul from Lavey, really, but you're on the world stage, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think I owe it to my mum and dad, to be honest. Like, my mum and dad are very humble people. They're just the nicest people in the world. And when I grew up, or when I was growing up, I never heard them speak bad about anybody ever. And we always just get on everybody. They're just very nice, humble people, like good, typical Irish man and dad. They're just good, nice people. And
That's nice.
I was just with them last night, actually. Just had a chatting about these sorts of things. But I just feel so much happiness when I speak about them, because they're just the best. They're the best, and the reason that I'm the person that I am is because of how they raised me, and everything good I do in life is because of them. Everything bad I do in life is because of me, So if you knew my man, dad, you'd realise why I'm a pretty chilled out, happy enough guy, But
But how refreshing is that, Paul? To have sponsors throwing themselves. Social media can be a toxic world, but to have the anchor of two really good parents there in your corner, to have that real, and that's what I love about places like Lavey and West Belfast and different places, is that sense of groundedness and sense of community. And I imagine if you were to go anything but how you are now, you'd probably get a clip around the head when you go home by your parents.
They wouldn't even, that's the thing about them, they wouldn't even, like, anything, I could do anything and they'd still be like, you're the best. Do you know what I mean? But look, like, I think it's the nicest compliment ever when people say that to me. Because obviously you get in these sort of positions, you could become that guy, you could like start portraying a different character, you could like start flaunting this and that. I think that's why I love coming from here so much as well, because no matter how big you get, like, you're still just like, you're not too far removed from somebody just taking the complete hand out of you.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't get too big for your boots here.
Yeah.
And that's not in a case of like in a negative way, because like, as you said, I'd be saying to people, I'm going to be world champion, I'm going to be world champion. But like, I wasn't doing it in like a dickhead way, or like maybe some people would say it was a cocky way, but it was just a way of like, I believed it, you know, and I kind of went beyond that kind of, that like too humble mindset of here. I knew I had to go beyond that. I knew I had to think bigger. If I was going to be a world champion, I had to think bigger. But it's honestly my favorite thing about coming from here is just the crack, and just not feeling, can't take yourself too seriously. You just can't do it. You wouldn't get too far. Like, people would hate you.
They would. And I remember watching what I love. I kind of love watching your preparation and fight week, but I love what you do post fight. So whether it's the States, whether it's Dubai, within a few days, within a week, you're always back in your parents' house and with family around you and tea and sandwiches and. I just think it's really, really nice, really grounding. And I remember reading, I'd probably be a boxing fan as opposed to MMA, followed boxing like amateurs right up. And what really struck me with the MMA world, so the last fight you were beat, very, very thin margins. But the MMA world really took to you. They were like, oh my, like this, he embodies. I think boxing sometimes get caught up in that zero or that loss, whereas MMA seems to get me with the best fight the best. And it's the character that kind of comes out, and your character, I think, really jumped out. I mean, we'll talk about Khabib and that, but you got global recognition from like the epitome of the fighting game because of not just your performance in the cage, but how you held yourself before, during, after. It's so fascinating. It is so fascinating. You'd mentioned about like how far you can go. Like how do you process that? I mean, what does the future look like for you? You're back in the gym now, but what does the future look like within the next 3 to 5 years for Paul Hughes?
I foresee like myself becoming one of the biggest stars in the whole sport. Like, I think that's my destiny. Not that that's what I'm gunning for in terms of a everybody know me kind of way. Like, that's not my focus. I just think that my performances are going to take me there, and I think that I just showed a real good glimpse of that in my last fight as to how much I blew up around the world, because I wasn't expected to even be close to Usman. Even my fight before that against AJ McKay was a huge underdog in both of them. But I knew I had something. My team, we've known for a long time, and we knew it was only a matter of time before I got to show it on the world stage. So thankfully now I've got to show it there a bit, and things have just blown up into a whole new level. But I just foresee it going more and more. I read a post the other day, like 2024 is the year my life changed, and 2025 I take it to heights that no one expected. And I've got an idea of how my 2025 schedule looks, and I think that it's well within my ability to shoot to another level.
I read that post you're referring to, and what really excited me, because I remember reading it like with intrigue. 2 posts recently. One, it was up this week. It was around your debut. But going back to that 2024 one, because what you had said was, it's the year my life changed. 2025, things are getting exciting, but I feel as if I'm only starting.
Yeah.
which is really, really, it has to be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot I want to do in this game. And, I had to be very patient for many years there to get this opportunity that I then got with the PFL. And I just had to wait for my time. I had to keep. That's where the discipline is destiny comes in. I mean, the waiting that I had to do to get here, people would not believe. Now, a lot of people here tapped in the MMA game kind of got an idea of what I was doing with Cage Warriors and this and that, and people were just losing their minds as to how I had not moved on to a worldwide organization like the UFC or PFL. And it finally came, and I think it's just the start. I really do feel like that. And as mentioned, the last fight was just a glimpse into my potential.
Can I ask, in terms of going over to those environments, Dubai, the Middle East, the States, where you're being treated every inch like the star, the superstar, the epitome of your sport? Is that opening up your mind to new possibilities of lifestyle, of how you can financially reward your parents for their back end, things like that?
Yeah, mate, absolutely, no question. Now after I beat AJ McKee there in October, which really wasn't a long time ago, that was a huge card, and it was like absolutely nobody expected me to beat that guy. He was a huge favourite. He's 22-1. I was just a young kid coming off the regional scene, essentially. And after that, everything just changed in my life.
Wow.
PFL basically were just like, okay, he's the guy. So they've put everything behind me here, and they've treated me so incredibly well. And it has now given me a glimpse. And I think not that I've been living that lifestyle now, but since that fight and then the whole build up to the Usman fight and after, like how I have been treated, it's been so different. Like I am just being treated like an absolute superstar now, and I'm getting now finally financially compensated for the value that I'm bringing to these organizations, which I just wasn't getting in Cage Warriors. I was selling out big shows, doing big events, and not getting compensated, which is a whole other thing in itself. But to finally now be in a position where I'm getting paid fairly for the value that I'm bringing is a huge thing, because I think that most fighters are hugely underpaid, and it's the hardest game in the world, where you're given a lot of your health, your brain health, and to now finally just be in a position where I can pay my coaches really well. I can go to Dubai for a month's training camp to make sure I'm properly prepared. Yes, it's a big investment, but I can at least afford to do it. And the best investment's obviously in yourself. Like, so I'm thankfully in a really good position to, I've only broke onto this kind of level, so I've obviously got a lot of work to do. But as I say, to be able to reward the people who have come up with me and give everything to me in these like kind of darker times, it's unbelievably meaningful. Like, and that's why I'm just like on top of the world,
I think people watch combat sports and it looks glamorous because you're watching it either in the stadium or on TV and you see the lights and the advertisements. It's a brutal sport too. It's a brutal business as well. You throw injuries into the mix. And I think, when you start looking at like marketing and how fighters market themselves, and the obvious comparison is Conor McGregor, who marketed himself extremely well in those early days, extremely well. You've taken a completely different approach, and you really embrace and embody humbleness. And I remember a conversation I had when we did the Rising Tide Network event. There was a guy there that day, Neil McManus, who was the interim captain, and Neil and I were going back and forth, but I can't remember what fight, but you had beat your opponent and you essentially got down on your hands and knees at his feet and thanked him for the fight. And just, it was for me, it was like that pure martial arts philosophy of warriors respecting each other and but remaining humble to yourself, remaining your authentic self. Was that a gamble because you weren't, I suppose, overtly saying things that might, get the clickbait and get high engagement on social media? Did you see that as a gamble, or were you just true to yourself and confident this will work?
Just that moment in particular?
It just throughout? Yeah.
I don't know. Like, the likes of that, like that's a good moment to reflect on, but it also kind of shows the juxtaposition of fighting, because 1 minute before that I was trying to drive my elbow through his head. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is where it's just such a interesting kind of sport where there is, like, I've come to realize that there really is like a alter ego going on there. Like, that competitive side of Paul, like, is like another thing, and then it switches to being down in your and kneeling in front of your opponent and thanking him. It's, I don't know, my philosophy around it all is just, I'm doing me. Like, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't like that, and there will be, as my name gets out there more, there'll be even more people. But like, I know that I'm being true to myself, and at the end of the day, if someone says something that I don't like and I tell them to F off or whatever, that's also just me being me. Like, I'm not holding too much attachment to the kind of outside perspectives. I'm just gonna, like, that's what I felt like doing in the moment, because I had so much respect for my opponent. We had a big history, and that was just an authentic moment, and that's all I can try to do, is just be authentically me. That's the best way, because when you start kind of playing an act, first of all, people see through bullshit. Yeah. People aren't stupid. Like, a lot of fighters, they play the game and they think that fans are stupid, and they don't realize that they're just bullshit. I'm just gonna try to be me, and if people like it, then that's amazing. I love that, and if they don't, then I don't really mind either. You know?
Yeah, I love that. You know, authenticity is a superpower.
Big time.
And it gives you energy, and I suppose you're not losing energy with a mask on. You mentioned the alter ego. Again, it fascinates me about the world of particularly combat sports. I'd mentioned, like, the first time coming in, Paul on a Monday was completely different to Paul Hughes, the fighter, in the octagon on a Friday. Is there ever times outside of training camp or outside of the ring, so to speak, that you struggle to switch off? Or do you see yourself when you start a camp that Paul Hughes, the fighter, starts to kind of, you're living within that persona more so than Paul, who's the every inch the son and the friend from...
Yeah. It's been different recently. I don't know if it's just to do with the magnitude of the events, or because, do you know what it is? Like, I feel like I am becoming more of this. It's becoming more of my total identity as Paul the fighter, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I've thought about it a bit, because I haven't been able to switch off as much, but it's because it's just consumed me for so long now. Like, and right where I'm at now in my career, there's just so much opportunity. So, like, I'm so switched on all the time. Like, I just have so many things now that I'm working on, things working outside of fighting too. And it's a lot, but it's like, I'm just so, like, I feel so good about it all, because I've waited for so many years to get to this position. So, like, right now, I don't know. I'm definitely not switching off as much as I used to be able to. Like, I'm definitely not meditating as much as I used to. I'm not getting out in nature. I'm not being yes, maybe training by myself more, but I'm not getting out and doing long walks because I don't have the time most of the time. So maybe I need to connect to that a little bit more for the long term, but just where I'm at right now. It was maybe 8 months ago since I made my debut with the PFL. I've had 3 huge fights, and I've completely just went from here to here. So I'm probably in that position now where I'm just so in it. But perhaps, if there's a time period, say I don't have a fight for 6 months, which is not the case right now because I have a busy schedule this year. Maybe I'll tap into that side. But right now I'm happy being in this position because it's where I've worked so long to be, and it's also now in a position where I'm capitalising too on my position, and I'm starting to set up things for myself, set up things for my family, and do these things,
I think it's absolutely the right decision. Again, there's maybe an element of what I'm hearing is you're in your prime and you're going to make every second count. Yeah. I think what people don't, particularly in your sport with injuries, it's no one's fighting into their 40s.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Not even really into kind of mid-30s. I mean, it's a short career. And I'm really, really glad to hear that you're thinking beyond that and starting to put things and processes in place. You've great people around you to support you with that. Have you thought beyond fighting? Have you thought beyond, like, what your 40s may look like? Is it business? Is it speaking? Is it coaching? Have you even allowed your mind to kind of...
I absolutely have.
Yeah?
No question. I have a plan in my head as to when I want to get out of this game. I have like X amount of money that I kind of want to have in assets when I get out of this game, and I just hope that whenever that day comes that I can detach and just go, you've done it now, because the one for more never ends, as you know. So I have a route out of this game that I foresee. I don't want to be in this game a long time. It's as much as I love it, it's you're at the end of the day, your brain health is everything. And that's the reality of fighting that maybe isn't even talked about enough, is you are getting brain damage. The longer you do this, the more brain damage you have. That's the last thing I want in this world, you know. So for me, what I think after fighting looks like is definitely being heavily involved in the sport and coaching. I love my gym fight academy. Like, I love growing the scene here in Belfast. It really is my passion. I love helping the young lads coming up. I really, really have a passion for it. It's really deeply meaningful for me. So I know that that's definitely in my future. And then business as well. Absolutely love business. Always have loved business. Working on some things now. I love it. It just sets me on fire as well inside. So I'm so glad that I have these avenues that I know that I'm going to go down. And when I achieve X number, then I hope that I can just go, right, that's whenever I maybe need to tap into that other Paul and go and have the isolation and the long walks and this and that to kind of to get myself back and go, remember the plan.
Tap into that creativity again. And
yeah.
Let's talk about the sport for a minute. How there's been an explosion in Ireland the last decade, particularly the last kind of 5-6 years. How big can it go? Obviously, boxing was always the number one combat sport. Do you think MMA can overtake it?
I think so. I think we're well on our way to doing that. Not that it's a competition, because I love boxing. Yeah. Like, I have such a deep appreciation for boxing. I'm like, would know all the top boxers here pretty well at this point, and I'm such huge fans of all of them. Like, I really love the boxing scene here, and I love what it's done for us as a nation. What it's done for us globally, like optics wise as a nation. It's the fighting Irish boxers, all this, and I love what it does for our communities here, especially in Belfast. Obviously, it's a lot more in the culture in Belfast than it is in South Derry. I just think that it's evident that MMA is starting to kind of take over, and in my opinion, that's a good thing, because it's probably less taxing on your brain than boxing. Obviously, boxing's all predominantly shots to the head, whereas MMA, there's a lot more into it. I think martial arts in general, as an ethos, as like when you're getting kids into it, when I have kids, I'm gonna rather send them into like jiu-jitsu than I am boxing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a wee bit safer in that regard, and then you have the whole martial arts ethos. But don't get me wrong, like, if my kid wanted to box as well, that'd be totally okay. But look, it's all positive. Like, yeah.
Will we see huge sellout cards in Belfast and Dublin in the remaining years?
I friggin' hope so.
I know it's something you've been very passionate about. I want to ask you from a business point of view, because I believe wholeheartedly that somebody that's putting their brain health and their life and their body on a line for the entertainment of the masses in many regards should be paid in alignment to that.
Yeah.
And I think whether people like to admit it or not, do I think the atmosphere is better in Ireland or other places in the UK? Absolutely. But then when you speak to fighters who are getting paid a lot more money to go to the Middle East and Saudi for boxing and Dubai do I agree with it? Absolutely. Because the person that has to benefit the most isn't the fan in that case, it's the fighter. Yeah. Does there have to be decisions to be made whilst you're in your prime, where PFL and that are saying you're like, we want you to headline these shows? I know you're super passionate about bringing it to Belfast, but do you have to sit down with your team and work out like expenditure and cost and that plan that you have for finances and stuff? Does that come into an equation?
Yeah. I think, in my position now, I don't think like there would be that much of a difference fighting at home or fighting in the Middle East. Now, don't get me wrong, I would definitely get paid more in the Middle East, but there's something like that. Some things can't be bought.
Yeah.
And my number one thing in my MMA bucket list was to sell out the SSE Arena, and someday it has to happen.
Well, that was my next question, because you have to. Does legacy come into it as well? Then
it depends what you mean by legacy.
I mean, an iconic ring walk going into a sold out SSE Arena in Belfast.
Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about these memories that you create, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it's about for me as well. Now, obviously, the financial side of it, yes, of course, like fighters need to be making as much as they possibly can. Absolutely, no question. It's the reason I went to the PFL and turned down the UFC. It's because I was going to get paid more. That's the whole point. You need to get compensated.
Yeah.
But yeah, some things can't be bought, you know. And as mentioned, 8 years ago, just the other day, I made my pro debut in the SSE, and if I could bring PFL back there and sell it out, that would be like number one on my list ticked off. You know, so I could go to my grave happy. I could end my career happy, knowing that at least number one's done. You know, whatever two, there might be a new number one in the future. It might be sell out Croke Park or something, but that would be big for me. Like,
do you think about stuff like that when you're on your own and when you're walking? Do you think of walking out to the SSE sold out with your flag, with your fans, with the music?
Oh
yeah,
all of these things.
Do you see that? Because I know you're big into visualization and meditation.
Time. Yeah. Oh, I see all of this many years ago. I've seen it all.
What does it feel like when you see that? When you see yourself, like, what does that feel like in the body?
I'll tell you what it feels. I'll tell you what's an even better feeling is whenever you visualize it and then it happens in real life almost exactly how you expected it. And one of my best examples for that is whenever I was fighting Cage Warriors. I was like, as I said to you, I was going to be world champion. That was my first initial goal. And I remember there was this French guy, Morgan Charrier was his name, and he became the champion. I remember I had maybe 1 or 2 fights in. I called him out after one of my fights. Shouldn't have. He was way ahead of me in his career. And I remember in my old place, I used to live in Belfast, I remember being in the shower, and this song came on. I was like, that's the song I'm going to walk out to. It's a song I still walk out to now, Victory Lap by Nipsey Hussle. I was like, I'm going to walk out against Charrier to that song. And I remember the walkout. I remember just like going, holy shit, like this is going to be massive. And I didn't listen to that song again until I fought him in London. And to this day, there's probably, I would say it's the moment, the highest moment of like ecstasy in my whole life was whenever the walkouts happened, and it was absolutely, they were out of this world. But I opened up with the old triangle, just like an Irish song to get everyone going. And then it went into Victory Lap by Nipsey Hussle. Probably a year and a half since I'd listened to the song. And it just came on. I remember that feeling being like, holy shit, you can do these things in life. Like it's possible, you know? And that was, and now I've been very, very, very lucky to be able to have multiple moments like that now. Yeah. So that's the greatest feeling of all.
I can imagine, Paul, and like we've spoke about the things like manifestation and that, and it's easy to discard it as woo-woo. It's easy to discard visualization as woo-woo until you speak to athlete after athlete after athlete. It's like, I've swam that race, I've run that run 1,000,000 times. You'd say it happens in the shower, like just that came into your mind. You were like, you just knew. It was that telling, that knowing saying. Do you actively go looking for those moments of clarity where it's like, I know, I can see this in the mind's eye, I can feel it in my body, I'm going to commit to making this a reality?
Yeah. It oftentimes it comes naturally, because it's not something I'm not going like, right, I'm going to meditate for an hour here and I'm going to think about the walkout that I'm going to do next year, I'm going to do this or that. It's things that come naturally. I think they just come. Wherever they come from, they come naturally, and then thankfully I at least try to be self-aware enough to see these things come in and to pay attention, but sometimes it just hits your soul and you're like, you can't, it just stays with you. The likes of that one just came, that song came on, I was like, that's it. It just came to me. So now in saying that, like I've definitely had moments where I have really focused on meditation, like I've done like multiple retreats. And I have had these sorts of moments when the mind is really, really, really coming down and you're super, super present, where these kind of things have came through. So yeah, I guess if I do practically make the effort to sit down and do these things, now I think about it, I can bring these moments up the horizon a little bit more. But sometimes they just come naturally in normal day life. So yeah, I guess it's just being aware enough in whatever moment to like see it come in.
I think
you know.
that peace of mind is not like when Jordan Peterson talks about the warrior. It's the warrior that keeps their sword sheathed, and it's the warrior that has the clear mind and the clarity and the focus. I think in today's day and age, everything rush, and the busyness and the distraction and of the digital age. I love that you're still meditating. I love that kind of self-awareness piece is very, very important to you. Before we finish, I suppose, you're in a really, really good place, both in your career, personally, professionally. Looking back, say young people listening to this conversation, they're thinking, I would love to maybe express my potential. I would love to, I'm enjoying a combat sport or any sport. What advice would you give them? Is there a short answer? Is there a blueprint? Is there a couple of ingredients that if somebody were to apply, they could progress?
Well, first of all, you got to find it, and to find it, you have to push your comfort zone and try new things. Like it's a question that I get often asked is like, how do you find, like, you found your thing? Like, how did you find it? And it was by trying different things. Like I realized, I'm a competitor. I love this kind of thing. I tried out the sport. I took the jump to kind of go down to the gym, which is like a nerve-wracking thing. And I took the risk and kind of pushed the boat out, and then I found it. So I think definitely, like, it doesn't just come to you. You have to actually do like conscious like work towards it, and to find what sets me on fire inside. It takes time, and some people don't find it till they're 30, 40, 50. Yeah. And that's fine. You hear that all the time, but I don't think you're going to get there if you're just like kind of staying in your own wee comfort zone and kind of, the comfort zone's a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Yeah. So that will kind of always be my first thoughts behind it. Yeah.
I get the impression when I'm talking to you that you haven't just went all in with fighting, you've went all into life. Yeah. And you've just kind of been open to making mistakes, been open to starting over again, being open to, make particular choices, but I get this impression that you've just really surrendered to the flow of life. There's direction to it, but it's okay. I'll try this, and I'll do this. I'm going to be open to this.
Yeah, well, look, I'm trying my best. Like, I'm in a great position now, but sometimes to get to heaven, you must go through hell. So I've certainly been through a lot to put myself in this position. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing what I'm doing right now. So a lot of darker days for sure, but that's created me into the person that I am, so that's just life, isn't it? The obstacles, the way and all that. So
what I love about this conversation, Paul, is the three episodes up until this one has been people that have retired from sport. They've been high achievers. So we've had Carl Frampton, Mary Peters, Andrew Trimble, who played for the Irish rugby team. And they have all since retired, and they're kind of looking at their career from a more reflective point of view. You're in your prime, but there's an old head or an old soul in your body. There's that real sense of groundedness and self-reflection piece, and I think it's only going to serve you well. And as we're speaking, I'm really excited to see where you can go. I think in sports, the Irish have got to the top before, in different sports. And there's been an element, people say, the curse of the Irish, like George Best and that, and people have turned to alcoholism and, Alex Higgins and different people. And I speak to you, and I think with your parents and the people around you and your journey through the tough times, through your focus on self-improvement, I think you're going to be one of the ones that beats the curse and puts the Irish on the global world map for the right reasons. And I'm really, really excited to see that happen.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so. I hope I can do that for sure. I'm going to keep trying my best anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Paul, thank you very much. That has been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Yeah, good to catch up, bro. It's been a minute.